Hey,
Hey,
I'm Sybil Erie,
and I'm Rose Nocturne.
and we're the Ghost Maidens.
We're a paranormal investigation duo that navigates across the frontier of reality, post-truth, and modern spiritualism.
Where metaphysics and entertainment red pill simultaneously and merge into the phenomenon known as paranormal pop culture.
Being the true millennials we are, we made a podcast called Ghosts and...
In this podcast, we talk with academics, scientists, artists, paranormal investigators, and sometimes our own moms.
Oh God. This is Ghosts and Ghost Hunters.
Amanda is a paranormal investigator, paranormal ponderer, ghost hunter. I'd even say an abandoned urbexer as well.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I'd even call you a paranormal influencer.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah. My dog is here throwing his bone around, so that's what that noise is.
And with a very unique approach, I think.
Hey,
There's not many paranormal investigators, let alone female paranormal investigators, who go out in the field all alone. I think that's one of the things that makes you exceptional, I think.
Yeah.
We wouldn't even, like, we were just saying to each other, like, going out there alone, that's ballsy.
Yeah.
That would make me nervous. Also because I would want to share my experiences with someone. But you also probably share your experiences with people, like on the social media, but maybe also your friends.
Yeah, on social media for sure. And I have traveled and investigated with other people. And then if I'm called out to a location to investigate, I'll investigate with like the people who live or work in the building. I'm open to investigating with other people. I just function as myself, like, and I have done a lot of investigations by myself, but that's more circumstance than it is preference, I would say. I have no problem doing things by myself, and I don't like to wait around for other people to do it with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I haven't found a team here in my town that I want to join. So it's hard to find people who are like-minded in the paranormal community, especially ones that you feel safe or comfortable with going out into these locations. So I just decided doing it alone was my best option. But I think like 3 people is like the perfect amount of people to investigate with, because I do think there's something to be said about the energy of more living people investigating a location. Like sometimes I feel like I'm not getting as much out of a location as I could be if I had at least a partner.
I stayed in a haunted hotel room by myself, and I couldn't sleep the rest of the night because I was just like I couldn't do it.
Yeah. It was really, really scary. And I talked a lot about this online, but the Lizzie Borden house alone was like mentally really exhausting, and there was a lot going on. Like I was afraid of being in this big house by myself, afraid of I was in Massachusetts, and I'm from Washington State, and that's totally
very far away.
Opposite. Yeah, so it was just like there was a lot of stuff like psychologically that was going through my head like that.
What kind of a place is it?
It is a like 4-story or 3-story house, old house, built in, I think like the mid 1800s, like 1860. And so it's weird because the house, the neighborhood around it has been developed and is more modern, and it's like offices around it or like parking lots, whatever. And then you just have this house there. And it's totally like, it looks like from the 1800s. So they renovated it to be back to its original state when the Borden family lived there. And then real quick on the story of the Bordens, the mom and the dad in the house were murdered by axe back in the 1800s.
I think I heard about this place. Yeah.
Yeah, potentially by the daughter, but it's unsolved still. So this house is where they were murdered. I stayed in the bedroom where the mom was found on the floor, murdered. Which it's funny because I chose that room. I thought it would be really haunted because of that.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like it was necessarily the most haunted room. But what was interesting about the Lizzie Borden house and its activity was that it was moving around the house like it was intelligent, which was, I mean, I'm well researched enough to know, like, to be able to rationalize, to be like, okay, this is what is happening. It's an intelligent haunting, or is it residual, whatever. And as I was there, I could hear footsteps above me in the bedroom, and then I would hear it down the hallway, and then I would hear it in the bedroom that I was in. And that was so scary to feel like this unseen force was just moving around me. And I got it in my head that it was like watching me or observing me. And then and I'm not like psychic. I don't claim to like be able to communicate with the dead outside of the investigating that I do. But I did also get this feeling that it was male. And I still don't know why to this day. Like, it could have been anyone. They say that like the mom haunts the house and Lizzie haunts the house. They have all of these different ghost stories. But for some reason I was like, this is male and it's walking around me and it's watching me. And I was so freaked out that it really wasn't fun at a certain point. I remember calling I called my mom first, and I had to like, this is like TMI, but I had to go to the bathroom, and I was like so scared off the bat at like 7 p.m. at night. I was like, I'm too scared to go to the bathroom right now because like I'm the only person in this entire house. So I go into the bathroom and I close the door. What if I hear something outside of the door? I'm gonna have to pop out of the bathroom. You know, it was just like messing with my head already. And so I called her in order to go to the bathroom. So I was on the phone with her, and then after that, I jumped on live stream, and I was live streaming for a total of probably like 3 hours.
How did that feel, having also virtual ghosts there as well as the other ones?
It helped me so much. I at one point on live, I was like, this is solely for me. I'm like not trying to entertain you guys. I'm like, I absolutely need your help, you know, to like keep my mind busy, because I was afraid. And you guys, I don't know your personal experiences in the paranormal, but like when I was growing up, I had some scary stuff happen, just like, you know, things move, whatever. I thought I felt or saw ghosts when I was really young. And that kind of went away as I got older. But it took me back to being a kid and how scary that was as a child. But I lost my train of thought. But anyway, live stream helped a lot though. I was on the phone or on the internet the entire time I was inside that house, like literally every single second of it, because I didn't want to quiet my thoughts. That's what I was saying. I didn't want to quiet my thoughts, because when I was younger, if I was just in my room and it was completely quiet, that's when I was like paying more attention to it or something. So I didn't want to pay attention to it.
You need to focus on something, and when it's just yourself, then the things you can focus on is either your mind or the house. And those two things are hostile at that moment. So,
what were you afraid of seeing, Bruce? Were you afraid of turning a corner and seeing a figure? Or like, what was really like the moment where if this happens, I'm fucking out of here?
What's crazy about this question has like driven me nuts after I left the house, because what was I scared of? I don't actually know. That's why it's so fascinating psychologically, is that I was experiencing like this extreme fear, like terror almost. And I don't know really what I was afraid of, because what I was afraid of was happening. I was hearing these things. I was seeing weird lights in the room. I was just feeling, it was a feeling, you know? So looking back, I wish I could have gotten past that fear and realized that like, what was the worst that could have happened in that scenario? Like, I don't personally believe I could have been harmed. So really it's just about what could I have seen? And I mean, would I have seen anything? I don't know. Like, but I think a full-bodied like apparition would be terrifying if I had seen it. But in the moment, I don't know. I was just, my body felt fear, and I don't know why.
I think this is one of the most interesting things actually about paranormal investigations is to to being able, and it hardly ever happens, but to be able to look this fear in the eye and in an honest way, and to just try to take that apart. Like, what am I afraid of? Where is the fear even? Like, what memory is triggered? Like, for example, you go back to your childhood, so it's always a very personal, extreme emotion that's always connected to very personal circumstances and very poetic visions almost. And I never really arrived there where I'm like, oh, I'm afraid of seeing a shadow. Like, I almost never really get there.
Yeah, like we were telling, Rose was telling Chad a few weeks ago about how she had like a really paranormal liminal day, and she saw a piece of black tar. Well, she didn't know it at the time. Something was dripping through her ceiling, and this was like the most paranormal thing that could have happened to her in her own context, that she had to call me and be like, I don't know what's dripping out of my ceiling.
It felt like a H.P. Lovecraft novel moment. Like there was like another dimension dripping into my bedroom to keep an eye on me, or to like blame me for all the mistakes in the universe. I don't know. It just felt it felt absolutely paranormal. And I kept it, the drop of tar, because it's shiny and it looked like an angel tear.
So it was physical, like it was actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, but still, it's
fascinating.
It brought me right to a place of absolute terror where I didn't trust the rules of reality anymore. And I think this is also what happens in paranormal investigation sometimes, because you open yourself up completely to be receptive of all the history of the place, everything, all your own emotions, and you just basically walk in there and say, all right, give me an experience. And then that's when stuff gets weird sometimes.
Yeah, boy, Broler wants to know, is clairvoyance considered paranormal?
I think, well, God, that's a broad question, because like paranormal is really all encompassing. Same with like the occult. It's a very broad term, but clairvoyance would be like a spiritual gift that I think would be more classified under like the metaphysical or like parapsychology, I suppose. But yeah, it could all be considered paranormal.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I like don't have experience with. I don't typically go into investigations and see in my mind's eye, see the activity going on. I'm very I don't know the word, but I'm very skeptical, honestly.
Yeah, do you think people actually can see that, or that it's just because when I see things, I don't actually see them, I just see them. And I wonder that people that claim that they can like see exact photo real like memories, I wonder if that's embellished.
Well, I think
that all the time. I wonder that myself. I don't know. It's hard because I have close friends, like people who I really respect and trust, who do have some spiritual gifts similar to this that are hard for me to believe because I have not experienced them. So I have to just be like, I believe that you believe that that's how that happens.
Exactly.
I have no idea. Yeah.
I believe that you believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing I've had to an experience like that was at the Borden house, when I say like it was male. I don't know why I think that. Like, and it was so immediate too. It was definitely paranormal in itself. The fact that I had this like just thought. It was just like thought pop into my head. I was like, this is like a man walking around. Don't know why. Had nothing to go off of.
I can't believe you heard like footsteps. I haven't really experienced that. I would probably shit my pants, honestly.
I think that's also how inspiration works. When you're like, an idea comes to you, or like all of a sudden you just really feel like a direction you need to go. And I think this is also with paranormal experiences. Like there's no, like you could hold a magnetic field measurement next to it, but like it's not from the physical world.
I think what happens most often is these like more nuanced like smaller instances where you can't necessarily catch it with a piece of equipment, or it's not really a person that walks by or a shadow or a footstep, but it's more of a feeling or a synchronicity or a strange occurrence like that happens in your day, you know, like a bird flies by right when you're talking about a bird or something. I don't know, like just these little things I find to be just as fascinating as a ghost that you can catch on a machine. But that actually is kind of why it was so terrifying to be in the Borden house and to have something so physical happening that it messed with my head. I was like, this is not like my personal gnosis is that this doesn't really happen. Like it like changed how I thought about the paranormal.
Yeah, it only takes one experience, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna just be one where I'm just like, oh shit, now everything has to change that I thought.
Did the people on the internet also hear the footsteps?
There is one part of a live stream, and then there's also some phone calls I had with people that aren't online, but there's a part of the live stream that you can hear. There's this like armoire or closet, like a wooden freestanding closet in the bedroom with me. And you can hear that move, which was footsteps walking by the armoire. So it was like the wood kind of moving. Yeah. And you can hear that on the live stream. And then some people that have watched my live streams that I posted have said that they can hear some footsteps. And you can if you intentionally put on headphones and like look for them. Because I react like really I react very large to like the footsteps. Like I'm like, oh my God, my face. And so if you listen to that when I'm doing that, then you can hear them. It was crazy. It was like absolutely just physical, but it had me questioning, is there somebody in the house with me?
Yeah, which is worse.
Yeah.
Oh man, I would like, be so afraid. Like most people think that maybe they think that I'm the tough one in like paranormal situations, but absolutely not the case. Like I believe everything in certain moments.
Rose always gets bird messengers inside of her house that she has to deal with, and then usually that is followed by a crazy period of inspiration and that's a lot of writing.
Yeah, it feels like losing my mind, but they're also precious moments that I wouldn't want to miss.
I'm way more inclined to believe those type of like divine or like spiritual moments. My skepticism is definitely rooted in skepticism of modern ghost hunting and like traditional paranormal experience. Like how you're talking about, do people really see a ghost? Like in full form. That stuff is where my skepticism is, like in terms of ghost hunting, but with like spiritual experiences like that, I'm way less skeptical. And that's where a lot of my experiences have come to, like personal stuff that's just like hard to explain almost.
Yeah, do you think like as when you call yourself a paranormal investigator that you have to sort of take yourself seriously because a lot of other people don't take the paranormal seriously at all? And that it's not necessarily all aliens and Bigfoot and stuff.
Well, I think also like when you're a lawyer, you don't have to explain yourself.
I find myself needing to take a stance of like a more grounded approach. And that does tend to give me a more serious, I don't know, demeanor. Like I've been told I'm very serious. I'm not always super serious, but when it comes to talking about the paranormal, I take a more serious approach because there is a lot of stuff out there that I don't agree with or like don't want to align myself with. But then surprisingly, a lot of people in my personal life too are like, a lot of people believe in the paranormal. It's crazy. Like, especially nowadays. It didn't always used to be like that, but I feel like I don't find myself having to explain myself too much, which is shocking. But in the last couple years, when I tell like I have a normal day job, I've told everyone I work with what I do, and I've never had anyone really like question it or react poorly to it. If anything, I have people come forward and tell me their own personal stories.
So do people also come to you with their stories? Because that's our experience. Like the moment we started doing this, and like here in the Netherlands, it's a little bit different, but also I feel this change of people accepting the paranormal more now. But at first, like people here were very like, oh, ghosts, why? They don't exist. But then when you dig a little bit deeper, when you go just a little bit below the surface, everyone all of a sudden wants to share their their story with you.
Yeah, and then when people say that like, oh, they're not superstitious or they don't believe in ghosts, or you start talking and then you find out they keep this special rock in their pocket every day, and then you're just like, wait a second. And it's just like these they exist in ways that people don't actually realize that like that means you are, or like I would never say Bloody Mary 3 times in a mirror, but I don't believe in God. And then it's just like,
it's like I'm not superstitious, but when I don't use this teaspoon in my coffee in the morning, like I will have a bad day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I do think people in the paranormal community though are like magnets for stories. I think I don't even know if I know what that's about. That's magical in itself. It's like somehow people can tell that we've taken off the veil or something. Like they can just tell that they can come to us and divulge their stories to us. That happens to me all the time.
And there's a question. What's your opinion on haunted dolls? Can objects be haunted?
I actually have a YouTube video up about a haunted doll.
You hear that, Herbert?
I used to not totally believe in haunted objects. And I can't tell you why. I just sort of thought it sounded too fantastical. Like it was hard to believe. But my friend and I bought a haunted doll on eBay. It was only like $13. So we felt pretty good about it being like legitimately haunted because it wasn't outrageously priced. It didn't feel like a scam. But my friend and I, she's in Ohio and I'm in Washington. I spent a week with the doll. She spent a week with the doll. We didn't share anything that was happening with the doll with each other until the very end. And at the very end, we were able to share our experience and had similar things happen. Like I was hearing footsteps in the hallway. She heard footsteps in the hallway. I caught, like, the doll was supposed to be one ghost, and I wrote down the feeling I got that it was like a vessel, like there were more than one spirit attached. She also wrote the word vessel and that there was more than one spirit attached. And there was just like a lot of similar stuff that made you wonder at the end of it, like, can energy attach to an object? Like,
did you know the story of the doll?
So we knew that the doll was found at a garage sale in a box of stuff, and that it was at a house that the wife had died at or something. They seemed to think it was a ghost of their neighbor's wife, I think. Which I don't know. It's also weird because it's like, I don't know if it was haunted by the neighbor's wife, or if maybe it spoke more to like that living people can project their energy or something, like, because we're sharing this doll. I don't know. It was very interesting. It did result in some really fascinating stuff to think on. But after that, I don't know. Yeah, I do think that dolls and other things can be haunted, but I just don't think it's like Annabelle, like it's not like on the movies.
Or Chucky.
At least, it's not like it got up and walked around or it talked to me or anything. It was more just like, more like a vessel, like something that energy could attach to, and then I could tap into it. And that's all I know. I don't know how or why that can happen, but
we have an interesting pop culture question.
Oh, and there's one other question from your boy Broller. What would you say is the ratio between real paranormal phenomenons and fake ones, hoaxes?
I don't know the actual ratio, but like, my answers are always so like more than you're asking for, but here we go.
That's what we want. Yeah. That's what we want.
So
go.
I think that it's more common that you have actual paranormal activity or phenomena, and then you have people who believe that paranormal phenomena is happening, but it actually has a natural explanation. I don't think that necessarily is a hoax. I think there's a lot of people who believe their own bullshit, so to speak, like who believe
bullshit
that they
egregores. Yeah.
And so
and then there's pop culture amping it up.
Yeah. And then you have actual hoaxes, which I think is there. Obviously you see that more in social media, like TikTok is a good example. Like you have a lot of hoaxes on TikTok where if they're showing video after video of like cabinets opening and stuff flying across the room, and for some reason they keep catching it on video every time. But I think more often than hoaxes is people who can't, who don't have the ability or the knowledge to debunk phenomena that's actually caused by natural things. And then you have actual phenomena.
Like there's also places that there's, for example, there's a house and it's haunted, and then it might be actual paranormal activity or not, but I think the more people who go to that place believing it's haunted, the more it actually becomes haunted. I think if a large group of people start believing in something, it's relevant enough to call it real, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Then you get into the topic of egregores, or tulpas, and then it gets really confusing, because then it's like that's totally different. It's like the almost like the ghost of living people, so to speak.
Exactly.
So then so then all of that phenomena chunk of people believing stuff is paranormal when it's actually a natural cause, then they believe it long enough, then it creates actual paranormal phenomena.
Exactly.
And you see that a lot. You see that a lot in famous haunted locations that you have paranormal investigators traveling to all the time, and they're just injecting their own belief or their own, or injecting stories or legend or lore or whatever. And like, I feel like that's the case at like Waverly Hills, where I was recently. I didn't feel like Waverly Hills had its own paranormal phenomena. I think that the living injected enough stories into that place that it created the phenomena along the way. So yeah. And then on top of that, you have, I think there's a lot of weird stuff. Like if you go under if you call it like high strangeness, or like, I don't know, like just like the other phenomena, whatever, not like ghosts necessarily, but just weird stuff. That stuff's happening all the time. And that stuff can even happen to the hoaxers. There's a lot of weird stuff out there. Yes, there are hoaxes online. You'll see that a lot, but don't let that like deter you from recognizing the strange in like everyday, just everyday life. Like there's a lot of strange stuff out there. And yes, there's a small percentage of people who are actually like doing a hoax or like a prank or whatever, but there's way more weird shit that's going on besides that, I think.
It's Red Cord's question.
Do you think the movie industry is a good thing for the paranormal culture? Or do you think it makes it so unrealistic that it warps the mindset that the average person would have about it?
Good question.
So as far as movies and like Hollywood goes, I do think it can be pretty harmful to the paranormal community. A good example is like the recent Conjuring movie, kind of demonizing occult phenomena as a whole. I think just because, it misrepresents what we're actually doing and what is actually going on in it. And it constantly like teeters on going into satanic panic again, which none of us want to do, although I feel like we're headed there again. And then you have paranormal television, like scripted reality TV. And that is hard because I think some of that is good. I think some of that pushes our work into the limelight, and I don't know, it introduces a lot of people to a lot of things that I'm happy that they're introduced to. But it has to be made for entertainment. So it is going to be dramatized, and it is going to misrepresent what we do as well. Yeah. And if anything, it's just misrepresenting us in that it's actually way more boring on a ghost hunt than it is on TV, you know? And as long as there are some bad shows out there that I feel like played into satanic panic, yes. But there's a lot of better shows coming out too that like, I think Kindred Spirits is a good example of one that's like more all encompassing of like different phenomena, and like
not
a little
all
bit
ghosts
more
are evil
grounded
and scary and bad. Yeah. And trauma.
Yeah.
I always like it in horror movies when you see like, oh, what have they been playing with? Satan. And then you see like, it's like level 1 occult, like a book on witchcraft, and just like a pentacle that's drawn the wrong way. And then like, you're just like, the real occult shit, the real stuff is things that no one has ever heard of. Like books that are hundreds of years old. And then like it always just makes me laugh when it's like, oh, we got another possessed girl here.
Like, where do all these Satanists come from even in the movies? Like those damn Satanists just always
they're at it again.
Slaying cats.
Do you think cemeteries are haunted? And also Seth asks, can we get a stream of you playing Phasmophobia with Amanda?
I don't know anything about games, but that game looks so funny.
Yeah, it's PC.
Anyway. Yeah, you can play it on PC.
Yeah. What was the question? Oh, cemeteries.
Yeah.
Oh. This is like, for some reason, a controversial question.
Yes, I know. But we take the opinion that they are not.
This is one of our most controversial hot takes.
Yeah, hot tea.
Yeah. So, okay. My answer used to be no, and it still kind of is no. I think that you can kind of get vibes off of cemeteries from living people, like we were talking about. I think living energy is very powerful, and you can feel that. And obviously, people are coming to cemeteries to mourn, to grieve. And there's a lot of it's a very emotionally charged area. However, I just recently had a conversation with somebody like 2 weeks ago that kind of changed my outlook on it a little bit. And I don't know what to think. I was out at a cemetery in Idaho, which no one wants to go to Idaho here, but it's not a great place, but it's beautiful and very wooded. And it's big for Sasquatch out there, specifically where I was. And I went to this cemetery that's on this hillside. It's massive, and it's very old and unkept. And I was just wandering around, taking pictures. Honestly, I was just there to take pictures. I wasn't even really investigating, but I had my equipment. And the cemetery goes up this very steep hill, and then there's this tree line, and then there's forest. And you don't know what's in that forest. It's like a total forest. And I saw this this like little fenced area with like a headstone. And I was like, ooh, that looks cool. I'm going to take a picture of that. And as I'm walking towards it, I get this thought in my head, which this is also making me think maybe I'm a little more psychic than I give myself credit for. But I get this thought in my head, and I was like, there's like a little boy over here, or like a little boy's grave. Little boy. I don't know why I was like seeing this little boy in my head, and I was like, interesting. And so I walk forward a little bit more, and I get out, I set my backpack down, and I start to unzip it to get some equipment out, because I'm like, is there a little boy here? Like, maybe I should investigate. I unzip my backpack, and all of a sudden I hear like the loudest tree branch snapping, or like wood snapping, like something got up from inside the forest, and like it was moving. It's walking through the brush and through the trees, and it had to have been either a moose, like as big as a moose, like massive, because it was just like so loud how big the tree branches were that were, and it happened as soon as I unzipped my backpack. And so obviously it was triggered by that noise or something.
Yeah.
And it like immediately struck fear in me, similar to Lizzie Borden's house. Like I just terror. And I grabbed my backpack that was unopened, like I'm holding it like this, and I'm running down the hill, like, no, just screaming. And I was like, I have no idea what that is, but no. And then I stop a little bit down, I wait, and then I hear it moving again, almost like it went either back into the forest or something, or like, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, it was weird. I was very scared. And there was like a lot of vibes happening that I couldn't ignore. Like, I was like, okay, that could be a moose. It very well could be a moose or a bear. But why did I think of a little boy and then hear noise after I'm thinking of this little boy? Like, I'm already feeling the vibes. It was just very bizarre. And then I told my friend, Mana, on her, for her Patreon, we were talking, and I told her this story, and she was like, well, do you leave offerings for the guardian or the gatekeeper of the cemetery? Like that whole lore that there's a gatekeeper for the cemetery. And I was like, honestly, no. Like, I've started getting in the habit of leaving offerings when I go somewhere. Like, I leave like nature offerings. Like, if I go to a park or a cemetery or whatever, I leave something because I'm visiting nature. And if I'm taking a picture, I'm essentially taking something from it. So I try to leave an offering, especially for cemeteries though. I'm not like giving an offering to a ghost because I never believed that cemeteries were haunted. I could just wander around and I didn't think anyone was there. And then I started, as I left, I forgot to say this, as I left, I got this feeling that I needed to leave an offering as I left. Like I was like, on the off chance that that wasn't a moose or a bear and it was something else, I need to leave something here that establishes some kind of respect. Like I don't want to just run out of here screaming, like, I know better, I'm going to leave an offering. And I didn't really have much on me, but I had this little compass, and I like this compass. I'm kind of bummed I don't have it anymore, but I was like, I'm leaving the compass for some reason. So I left the compass at the entrance, like this dilapidated gate to the cemetery. And I left it right at the entrance there by the pole, not knowing anything about offering for the gatekeeper of the cemetery. And then my friend tells me, well, you're supposed to leave an offering either entering or exiting a cemetery for the gatekeeper. So she's like, that's interesting that you were inclined to leave an offering as you were exiting.
Yeah.
And that you came in contact with this, like, possibly thing. Like, did you somehow know that I needed to leave an offering for this gatekeeper? And then I started kind of playing with the idea of like, can there be gatekeepers for cemeteries? Can they be more than just a ghost?
Yeah.
Like more than, can they be a Sasquatch? Can they be anything, you know,
moose?
like can it be an animal? And could it be like a really intelligent animal for some reason that just knows that he needs to like protect the cemetery? And so then that opened my mind up to, can cemeteries be haunted by that kind of energy, not by the ghosts of the people buried there? Because I still don't believe that makes any fucking sense, that you'd want to hang around your dead.
Exactly. We're also like, why would you haunt your own grave? Like, why would you hang around with your rotting corpse? Like, that's literally the last place you would stay at if you were to leave your body. I'm gonna hang out with my juices. No way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so then I was like, well, maybe cemeteries are haunted, but it's just by something else, and maybe something's watching over them to somehow. God, I don't know all the myths and lores of each culture, but maybe to like keep it, keep everyone in the ground and keep it all chill and like, you know, whatever. I don't know. Like there's lots of different,
separate the worlds. I don't know, like something.
I have heard of cemetery gatekeepers in some cultures. Yeah,
me too.
Yeah, and that one experience that was like 2 weeks ago really like changed my outlook on that. Yeah, it was really recent. Before that, I would say I did not think it was haunted, period. And I know what I thought and felt in that moment, which adds to the strangeness of it. That I'm like, was there a moose in the forest that projected itself as a little boy and like that was guarding the cemetery? I don't know. It got really weird in my head. I'm like, I don't know. So
it got you to change your mind about something. I think that's already like kind of magical in itself. Whatever it was, it has broadened your perspective.
Yeah, it served its purpose in some way, and who knows what it was. It could have just been an animal and nothing magical to it, but it is magical in that it served a purpose for me. So however, and that could go for anyone, however you perceive something within reason, and as long as you're not harming yourself or harming others, if you perceive it to be meaningful and like a message or like some kind of something, like then it's intended for that. Like don't let people tell you like, oh, the bird you saw flying outside your window isn't a sign. If you felt like it came at a time that it was a sign and it helped you move forward in some way, then that's magic. That happened, you know, like no question about it. But
that's why I never like it when someone says, oh no, that's just a bird. Like we have a joke also here in the chat that we say like, it's just this, and because I always get pissed, it's not just a bird, it's a fucking bird. Like that's special. Like it's just existence. No, it's existence.
Yeah.
Like things are special, like for only being material even.
Yeah. Do you think the fear was the same, like real fear, like for example wild animal fear versus also like Lizzie Borden house fear? Is it the same level of fear? Like is it all coming from the same place?
That's a good question. And I didn't really think about that, but I can confidently say that yes, like because that fear I felt immediately in the forest, there obviously I was afraid there was an animal that was about to come out and attack me. And that's a physical, real fear. That felt the same inside of me as it did when I first heard footsteps in Lizzie Borden house. Like it
Cold
did
terror.
just unfettered fear. Like just it's such a bodily like reaction, you know? And I recorded myself right after that cemetery experience actually, and I was shaking so bad. I was like, and that's how when I was talking to friends on the phone at the Lizzie Borden house, that's how I felt too. I was like shaking and, you know, like crying. I didn't cry in the cemetery, but I was more like, there was more adrenaline in the cemetery probably because there was like a fear of an animal.
Yeah.
Maybe, but in Lizzie Borden
Ready
house.
To run.
Yeah. But I forgot to say this. In the Lizzie Borden house, I did actually get out of there by like 2 a.m. And I was supposed to stay there and sleep there. And I don't normally subscribe to the idea that 3 a.m. is the witching hour. I think that shit's just
3?
around. I've never in my life cared about that at all. But that night,
the Lizzie Borden was like, I'm not going to wait this one out.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to wait and see. I do not need to be here at 3 a.m. No. And I went out into my car and I slept in my car until like 7 a.m.
Oh, for me, it's always 4 when the weird stuff happens.
Yeah, 4 for me too. Yeah.
Is it 4 a.m. on the dot or from 4 to 5 or
4 on the dot actually?
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever I wake up in the middle at 4 exactly, I like, don't like it.
It's not a good time. It's not a good time to be awake.
4 a.m. is kind of like a liminal time too, if you think about it, because you know you're it's not really late night and it's not really dawn. Like it's like in this in between part. So that might have something to do with it. I don't know about the 3 a.m. thing, but the 4 a.m.
I think for me, the 4, it's also just the loneliest part of the night. Yeah. Like what you're saying, it's the morning is coming, but it's not there yet. So it's also when you are like not in the day before anymore, but you're not ready for the day to come. And when you're awake, you just realize that you are like liminal moment, all alone. Yeah, the liminal. And also when it's a little bit gray in your room, and you can see all the shapes, but everything has the same color. And then is this all mine? What am I doing here?
Yeah, very much a liminal moment. That's like I feel like the quintessential moment of liminality or like liminoid experience. Yeah, like waking up at 4 a.m.
I think Torch has a question. If people are reincarnated as ghosts, does that also mean that there's heaven and hell? And if so, what exactly separates the people who go to heaven or hell? Okay, but Torch, people reincarnating as ghosts? I haven't ever heard that, Torch. I'm gonna let you reform that one.
I'm gonna give you a moment. But do you believe in heaven and hell? Like, is there for you a difference between the two? You consider yourself pagan. There isn't really the difference between good and evil, and it's not as black and white.
It just makes the most sense to me, and it's hard for me to put into words. I need to do more research into exactly what I believe, and maybe I don't care if I can put a name to what I believe. Whatever, you know, like if personal gnosis again, like I can believe what I want to believe, but I kind of like the idea that we die and then like our soul or whatever it is, like our energy gets mixed up with everyone else's energy and then just gets redistributed back into the living things. But at the same time, that's what makes most sense to me. That's not necessarily what I want to happen. I would really like to like
there's
die
a difference
and then
there.
like
what you want and what you think.
Yeah. And I'd like to die and then move on because I want to remember this life. It's hard for me to come to terms with not remembering this life after I pass, which reincarnation would mean I most likely do not remember. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd like to like ascend somehow. But that just doesn't make sense to me either. So it's difficult. I don't know. But I do know that I don't believe in heaven and hell. Like, I don't think that there's like places that our souls go and then we go to hell to like be eternally tortured and then we go to heaven to like hang with God. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
For me, I don't believe that the laws that we created on Earth as humans to live in society would ever apply to the afterlife. Like there's absolutely no reason for that to have like moralism be a factor in when you don't even have a body anymore. I think that's the only reason why we have morality is because we shouldn't kill each other. Like, and that's a body thing. So when we no longer have a body, there's absolutely, like, I'm 100% sure. Well, let's not say 100. Let's say 99. That's not, no.
Why do some people come back as ghosts and not others?
Do some people come back as ghosts?
Let's see, where to begin.
But this also, this depends on what your definition of a ghost is.
Yeah.
I think we should take a step back even.
What's a ghost first, I guess?
So, okay, for the sake of this question, let's just focus on ghosts as the actual human spirit being left behind, like an actual human ghost. So let's just focus on that for this question. And it's like, a ghost can be a lot of things, first of all. And like I said, there can be like a physical, like a ghost of a person that is separated from its body after it dies. And then a ghost can also be, I think, like living energy that can manifest outside of our physical realm, like in some kind of spirit realm or something. But why do some people come back as ghosts and not others? I have done some research into like paranormal archetypes. So archetypal hauntings, like the woman in white, the lady of the lake, the man in the hat,
exactly,
the lady, the La Lorena, you know, those kind of stories, like the crying woman, whatever. Paranormal archetypes that you see across different cultures in different stories and in different places, and it's like, well, why are there so many of the same ghosts everywhere? Got me thinking about, is there a recipe, so to speak, to create a ghost? Like, are there certain circumstances that create an archetype, and are there certain circumstances that create just a ghost that we come in contact with, like in a haunted house? And I think that there might be some truth to that. And by recipe, I mean like, or circumstances, like, did they die and they have unfinished business? There's the unfinished business trope. Or did they die under liminal circumstances? Did they die on the solstice? Did they die in the midst of puberty or marriage or divorce or some type of rite of passage? You know, like, does it have to do with the geological elements of where they passed? Like, are there a lot of different elements to the act of passing on that create something that persists after death? And I think that it's possible. And I think that that would make that believing that would make paranormal archetypes make more sense too. Like, are there a bunch of people, or not a bunch, maybe, I don't know, more than one person who've died under these circumstances in this same place, maybe on the side of a road or near a lake or whatever, that it becomes an amalgamation of their liminal energy within death that creates an archetype and then is projected forward to people in a way that we can understand, because we wouldn't be able to understand it otherwise. Like, could the Lady of the Lake actually be the amalgamation of multiple different energy sources in a place that we have to put a face to, and somehow our collective consciousness puts a face to it that looks like the Lady of the Lake, and then we have a Lady of the Lake ghost, and then that happens in a bunch of different places, in a bunch of different, all over the world, you know. Well, hopefully that wasn't too
no, it's beautiful. I love how you talk about it. And what I find really magical is that these archetypes are somewhat universal. I find that very, very mind-blowing. I think that for me is like the real magic, that apparently there are these archetypes, and I know, like a Lady of the Lake, all of a sudden we all seem to agree on magically.
Yeah, or we all agree what tragedy is. Like, a woman died, she drowned in a lake, and we all agree that that's terrible. And then somehow it creates some sort of like mystery or mysticism or tragedy, or like wanting to remember this person and how, I don't know, how sad it was and then you create a ghost or a story, and it becomes bigger in itself, and then it just becomes a legend, and then that turns into something else.
Yeah, and then it manifests in the physical realm eventually due to all of that. Yeah. I don't know. It's really interesting stuff. I worked on a documentary. We just wrapped in the spring, and I'd been doing it since October, and it plays into a lot about liminality and a lot about paranormal archetype in particular. And it got me thinking a lot about like, why is this person, or why is this person a ghost? Like, what circumstances? Because I had to look into someone who had passed. I had to look into every single circumstance that happened at her passing, and it happened to be, like I said, like it happened to be on the solstice is when she was murdered. So you have unfinished business, you have
ritual,
liminal time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then she happened to die in a place that had a lot of geological factors that were really fascinating, like glacier melt and different qualities in water where her body was thrown into. And so it just really got me thinking about like that recipe for a haunting, sort of, or recipe for a ghost. Like, did all of these factors make this ghost, and that's why she persists? But then why are there so many other ghosts like that? Also, the whole thing about like putting a face to energy that we don't understand. I think that happens a lot too. And that we're all more connected than we think. And so then our collective consciousness can put a face to things we don't understand, and somehow put the same face to things. Like, I feel like you see that in sleep paralysis, for instance, like sleep paralysis. So like there are scientific reasons why paralysis happens in sleep. There's also known reasons why, like sleep deprivation or eating poorly or stress or whatever. We know why it happens, but why do we all put the same face to the entity that shows up in sleep paralysis?
Yeah.
How did we all?
Why are all these?
See the same?
Why are they so similar?
Yeah. Collectively, we decide to put this face to it, which is a shadow figure, like which is a tall shadow man, whatever, or like something sitting on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why is that in history books for so long, being like I had sleep paralysis and had that happen to me, not knowing at all that it was even called sleep paralysis. I had never seen any paintings about it. I had no knowledge of it. Why did I see what other people had seen? I think, I don't know. I think it's like all connected somehow, but
it's a very special moment when you, for the first time in your life, talk to someone about sleep paralysis, like when you haven't connected the dots yet, and then someone's like, oh, have you ever had that you couldn't move, and then there's a black cloud on your chest, and then you're like, yes. They're like, yeah, and then you figure out it's sleep paralysis. But like, I remember that moment where for the first time I had this experience, and I shared it with someone who also had an experience. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? But it's very mysterious.
For me, it's always like a black curly smoke that crawls in through the door or from a corner of the ceiling. It's never really something on top of me. It's always just like a smoke that's just like
animal animal fur. Like I had demons licking my mouth.
Yeah, sleep paralysis is super interesting. Like my sleep paralysis, I don't have it anymore. I haven't had it for a couple years, but I had it for like about a decade. And when it first started, it was very classic, very much like totally paralyzed, felt like something was on top of me. It was like a black shadow, whatever. Continued to have it, I think, because I was really stressed. I was in my, mid-20s, whatever, and not eating well, whatever. Lots of reasons why I was having sleep paralysis. But my sleep paralysis ended up kind of starting to evolve in a way, my hallucinations in sleep paralysis started to evolve, and I started to not just see a shadow, but then I started to see, I started paying more attention and see like actual people with features. And sometimes I'd see one person, and sometimes I'd see three, and sometimes I'd see a spider. So it started making me think like about the idea that this state of vulnerability is actually opening you up to something, or to the other side. And that once you start paying attention to it, or like kind of confronting it in a way, because at a certain point I knew when sleep paralysis would start happening, like you get that fuzzy feeling and you feel like you're like in the room but not, and I would start paying attention to this energy, that I would start being able to assign like an identity to it, and it wasn't a shadow anymore, it was an actual person. And it's like, were those people coming through because I was in that state of vulnerability, or are those people always there? That's another thing too. Are they always there and I just unveiled myself to it and was like really vulnerable to be able to experience it? I don't know.
Maybe there's like they're a world of archetypes, just like a place where they all hang out, and then sometimes you get a little peek.
It's crazy.
I have a question that I like to ask everyone, because everyone has a completely different answer. But where are all the animal ghosts? Where are the dinosaur ghosts? Where are the cow ghosts? Where are the pig ghosts? Where are the chicken ghosts? Who cares about the animal ghosts?
We all know where the dog ghosts are.
Yeah. Dog ghosts and cat ghosts stick around, but no one talks about the animals you eat for dinner or lunch.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I believe that like all animals are conscious to a degree, and like we should care for all of our animals, obviously. But like, is there some level of like intelligence that has to be reached in order to persist after death? Or does a being have to have some kind of ability to rationalize staying, or rationalize like reaching out or manifesting? I don't know.
I would say that slaughterhouses would be some of the most haunted places on the planet. It's a reflection of also the human world, how we don't put that much emphasis on the soul of an animal, so we don't actually spend time thinking about as them existing as ghosts, because we obviously didn't care very much about them in life, so we don't really even think about them being ghosts. And I think with people, obviously we equate them on the same level as us, so we're very concerned with if they exist or not, because we have a lot in common with other humans, and we think ourselves better than animals. So I think we just don't give any thought to our haunted meal, as it were, that's on our plate, because for me it's really almost the same thing, I would say. And I would assume that slaughterhouses, for this reason, like taking lives without consent in this way, would be like an extremely haunted.
But like, isn't it obvious that the only animals that are still haunting us are the ones that we had in our family?
Yeah,
like
our
it's,
dogs.
It's your pets.
Yeah.
Like,
well, then
the proximity to us is like the only factor, I think.
Yeah. I was gonna say then that would say too that persisting after death in whatever form is more dependent on the living than the dead. So then you kind of get into will though too, and it's like, well, does a ghost have its own free will? Does it choose to come back, or does it only resurrect based on what power we give it from the living?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's super interesting. And then also you have a difference too if you're looking at it as like actual cow ghost that's like walking around and you could hunt it with your equipment or whatever. And then you look at like spiritual practices that believe in animal guides and spirit guides, and like I would say that those would be animal ghosts. Like for myself, like I have an animal guide that I feel like shows up in meaningful times. And it might be a physical bird, but is that kind of a bird ghost at a certain point, or might be
spirit animals? Definitely is a good argument for saying like they're here. They're just not the deceased animals. Like that's again the definition of what is a ghost. Is if it's a deceased human, then where are the pigs? But if you see it in terms of spirit animals
and intention and will, but for me that just reveals more about what humans think is important. And it's not what they eat for dinner.
But does that mean that the energy that, say, the cow's energy in a slaughterhouse is always present, but it just depends on whether or not we care to identify it, or is us caring feeding its energy to persist after death? And then you get into kind of like, is the other always there, and it's just a matter of how it's a matter of if we see it or not, or can we like manifest it? Can we can we make it happen through living intention and energy?
Yeah.
Whatever,
Like,
you know,
maybe
like
you would have a paranormal experience in a slaughterhouse because you do care.
Yeah. And then other people, like, your boy brother says, my explanation why there aren't animal ghosts around is because animals are too peaceful or pure to have unfinished business on the material plane. And I think, like, even also this argument is reflective of, like, oh, well, so I can feel okay when I eat them later, you know, like this sort of thing. I really think it's just a reflection on, like, the morality of animals, and if we think that they have an awareness or a consciousness.
Yeah, we don't see them as equal. Like, it's, But, yeah, do you have a question for us, maybe?
Do you guys do, oh, there's a little bird on my window right now.
Oh,
there's literally never a bird in this one area. Cute. Anyway, sorry. Do you guys ever go on paranormal investigations, like with equipment?
Yeah, we have a couple times. I did once in Florida with what's it called? War Party Paranormal.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I went to a cemetery with them. All I found myself was mosquitoes. That's all I found. We did one in an art gallery recently, and then we did one in, like, this kind of historical location in the Netherlands. And did we do something else?
Well, I think we our equipment, I think we use techniques.
Yeah. But we have, like, cameras, of course. And
yeah, but I think to communicate with spirits, we never really, like, we tried out EVPs, but it's always boring. But I think the most interesting results, and also for how we look at the paranormal, is when we do seance, like scrying, automatic writing, automatic poetry. Sybil does automatic drawing, and we do put white noise on our ears.
The
and
Estes method,
blindfold, so we create this sort of like prisoner's cinema.
Cinema, yeah.
Yeah, what do you guys do with your automatic drawing and writings afterwards?
I've been making a movie for, like, the longest time ever, where we do all this. At the end, we do, like, some sort of, like, a kind of ritual at the end for this entity that we're trying to figure out if it exists or not. So we're trying to, like, use our skills, because we both went to art school, kind of use our skills, or, like, almost go inside of, like, a trance mode, or like an ultimate, like, inspiration channeling, because for me that's the same words that you use in the paranormal and art, like medium, channeling, opening yourself up, like interpretation. It's all really the same for me. So
it's like spirit conjuring, but then in a more artistic way.
Yeah.
But I think, like, what we do with it, we put everything on one big pile. Like, so also the history of the place we went to, the people we spoke to, like, it's also, like, very anthropological. So it's like the area where it's going on, what kind of people are involved here, like what kind of building is it, and what are the visions we get, what are the words that we get.
Yeah.
And then we put it all in one big pile, and then most of the time there's automatically, like, one thing that, like, some sort of a narrative, or some sort of a thought, or some sort of a paradigm that seems to be coming back, and then that's our result. And it's always
so cool.
Yeah.
Do you identify with any particular spiritual path or religion or anything like that?
But I'm still a little bit on the fence on how eager I am to use that word for the name of that path, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. And it's also something that I keep on arriving at, but not for the obvious reasons or something. So, like,
I feel like you're almost at a place where you could create your own path. I'm sure if you haven't already given thought to that, and not that I think that there's any necessity for naming things, or like how people go by different, like I'm a garden witch or kitchen witch or whatever. Witch, I don't think that that's necessary, although it does help give people identity, and it does help give people a path to go down. But with your guys' involvement of, like, art and pop culture, and like theater, divination and channeling and stuff, that, like, you're almost on a path to identify it however you want. Like, I feel like it's unique in its own right. I've never heard of anything quite like it myself. So yeah.
Well, it's definitely in the tradition of what like occultists such as Aleister Crowley was also doing, and then like that's like Satanism almost. But I feel like I'm not really there where I can say I'm a Satanist, because it's also like it's such a heavy word. And
I almost like kind of was thinking too when you were explaining some of what you guys do. I was thinking about Crowley and thinking about Thelema and like ritualistic magic, ceremonial magic,
like chaos magic.
I do feel
also.
like I feel like it is a little bit more on that path, because you guys do. I do feel like from you guys, it is very ceremonial for you, that there is like a very clear defined ritual around what you do. But you're the merging of like theater and art with paranormal investigating or channeling or spiritualism, I guess we could say, is super interesting. And I feel like that even deviates from Crowley's path a little bit. I mean, he did have some eccentrics and like some different things that he dabbled in, but
I think it's the art and the ritual and the theater and the performance that what gives the magic to the paranormal. Like for me, I cannot have a ritual and not think about the theater of that, because then I cannot go anywhere when I'm doing that. Like I have to perform as if it's real, and then it becomes real. It becomes real. Like you're not questioning when you watch a movie like, oh, is what's happening real here?
Yeah.
You're suspending your disbelief, because at that moment it doesn't matter. You're just you're going.
Yeah. Wow, that's so fascinating. I love that. I think a lot of people could utilize that idea of treating ritual like theater, in that like if you perform, then it helps you almost like shed some of the doubt or some of the insecurity of like doing a ritual you don't believe in. So it's like if you immerse yourself in the performance of it, then it lends more truth and more believability, and like it lends more power to it ultimately. So
and then you don't really feel like you're faking anything, because you're also performing, but then that is the authenticity. Where do you want to be in the future? Because right now you're like I think I remember you being like a docent of like a historical place.
So I've been a docent at a historical museum for like 9 years, for a long time. I don't get paid for that. There's a cat hair in the air. I've been working at an old house museum for a long time. I also serve as a city at large representative for the Historic Landmarks Commission for the city. So
very good job for a paranormal investigator.
I know, right? I know. It's like, I'm like, don't you guys see? I'm doing this all for a reason. Like, it's funny. It's like preservation. More paranormal investigators should be into preservation, because we can't have spooky old haunted buildings without preserving our history, especially in America, where I feel like it's less respected than like overseas. I feel like you see a lot more older architecture in other countries. But so I'm a city at large representative. I'm finishing out my first term, and I'll probably do a second term. But also don't get paid for that. That's just like a political or like a local government thing that I do.
Busy girl.
I'm actually working on trying to make myself a little less busy. I'm stretched a little thin, but I have a day job though. It's like a really boring job that I'm trying to get out of. But I'm actively in the process of trying to identify how I can align all of my personal interests with something that'll make me money ultimately. So if that is social media or TV or something, cool, I guess. But like ultimately I'd love to travel to see more paranormal phenomena and to visit more historical buildings and to do all that fun stuff. And whatever I do for money, I hope can just support that. You know what I mean?
You have an open invitation to come to Amsterdam and The Hague. So yes. Well, I guess we'll Amanda, We're not very good at this.
No,
that's okay.
I'm gonna go get a glass of water. Bye. I was like, thank you.
Okay. My phone's about to die, but yeah, this has been really fun. I really love talking like this to
me too. I love how you speak about the paranormal. It's so profound.
It's refreshing also that like not every influencer is full of shit. It's very refreshing perspective.
Nice.
And yes, chat, there's the link to Amanda's YouTube, and the rest of her information is in our Discord under interview guests, and you can find her Instagram.
I'm hoping to get more on TikTok and YouTube soon. I'm pretty spooky on all platforms, but most active on Instagram. So
all right, great. Looking forward to it. Look at all your posts.
Right on. Cool. Thank you guys.
See you soon.
Bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Patreon supporters.
Patreon supporters who?
Our Patreon supporters, whom without their help we would not be able to make any of this.
You can find a link in our Instagram bio to become our supporter, or go to www.patreon.com/theghostmaidens. And for as little as $2 a month, you get access to our films, music, and exclusive content.
If you'd like to talk with us, get in touch by sending an email to theghostmaidens@gmail.com. And remember to look for truth, not proof.
Unless you're an actual scientist. Probably also a lawyer.
Or me to my boyfriend.
Or a doctor with a reputation to uphold. Or an astronomer.
All right.
Definitely an astronomer.